In 1980, Alfred Marshall defined economics as a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. In 1932, Lionel Robbins called economics a study of human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Economics has evolved as a subject whose study assists individually, groups, nations and even international organizations make important choice for the material welfare, both short term, long term, under limitations or constraints of resources.
After studying this module, you shall be able to know what the methods, tools, concepts, and mechanism of economic analysis are, learn how the basic economic problem of choice is studied through the production possibility curve PPC, identify how the price mechanism works to bring about equilibrium, evaluate the working of the price mechanism, analyze the equilibrium and disequilibrium situations. Let us begin with methods of analysis in economics. In its study of human behavior, economics uses both deductive and inductive methods. Deductive. Deductive method is the process of arriving at a general conclusion from one or more general premises by means of reasoning. If the premises are true and the reasoning is right, the conclusion is true as well. Inductive. Inductive method is the process of arriving at a general conclusion by the means of a number of specific examples or observations. Hypothetico-deductive. The third method is the hypothetico-deductive method or scientific method. In this method, the economist frames an explanation or hypothesis for some economic phenomenon. A hypothesis is not a theory. Only if a hypothesis is verified or found to be true can we call it a theory. Now let us learn about the economic concepts, tools, and models. The basic mathematical concepts that economics uses include variables, constants, and parameters. Variables are entities that take different values. They are usually symbolized by x, y, z and take the values positive and negative ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. Constants are the entities that for one particular analytical exercise take one particular value. They are usually symbolized by A, B, C or alpha, beta, gamma and can take any value between plus minus infinity but can take only one such value during a particular analysis. Parameters are entities that can be assigned different values for different variants of an exercise but in any one particular variant can take only one such value. Variables can be dependent or independent. An independent variable takes on the values by itself. A dependent variable takes on values according to or as per the independent variable. This relation of dependence between the independent and the dependent variables is known as a functional relationship or simply a function. It means that the dependent variable functions according to the independent variable. Let us now know about economic models. A model is a theoretical construct that represents the economic realities by a set of mathematical equations involving interrelated variables. These relationships can be logical or quantitative, but putting them in a model helps the economist to analyze the realities better and even make the future predictions. Econometrics is widely used in the estimations involved in the testing of models. We will now discuss the economic laws. Earlier, Economists often use the term law to describe their conclusions or theories. Example, the law of demand, the law of diminishing marginal utility, the law of diminishing returns. These are not the laws in the sense of being inexorable, enforceable, or universal laws, but merely the general trends or tendencies arrived at by the deductive or inductive methods as the case may be. However, law in the usual sense of the term does have a close bearing on economics. The existence of law and order in the country is prerequisite for it to function well. Now, let us move ahead and know about the problem of choice in economics. The basic economic problem is that human wants are unlimited, while the wherewithal means of resources for fulfilling those wants are limited. Thus, every society must face the three problems: what to produce, how and for whom, which are known as the problems of allocation, choice of techniques, and distribution. Economics studies this choice problem in one of the ways through the production possibility curve or frontier. The production possibility curve, known as PPC. This is a geometrical or graphical way of depicting this choice problem. Let us say that a society or economy, using all its resources fully, has the option of producing any combination out of a maximum of, say, cereals represented by the symbol X and the maximum of automobiles by Y. Let us represent cereals X on the horizontal axis and automobiles Y on the vertical. Each point on the xy plane would then represent a numerical combination of cereals and automobiles. Let us have a table of alternative combinations of the maximum number of laptops Y that can be produced along with a certain amount of cereals represented by X or vice versa. That is, we have a table of alternative combination of maximum y's going with different x or combination of maximum x going with different y's. Each such combination can be represented as a point on the xy plane. Let us join them. What we get is to get the production possibility curve, also known as production possibility frontier.
All points below and including the PPC represents combination of X and Y that are attainable by the society concerned, but only points on the PPC represent points of maximum X given the Y's or maximum Y given the X. Points below the PPC represent what the society can produce without using its scarce resources fully. Point A on the vertical axis and topmost left on the PPC shows the maximum number of laptops that the country in question can produce if it produces no cereal at all. Point E shows the maximum amount of cereals the country can produce if it decides to produce no laptops at all. All the points between them represents different combinations of cereal and laptop that an economy can produce with the available resources. The PPC thus depicts an entire array of possible choices or trade-offs for the economy.
Now, when we opt for one choice, we give up another. We forego an opportunity. The cost of opting for one choice is thus the opportunity of opting for the other. In economics, this is given the name of opportunity cost. The slope of the PPC reflects the opportunity cost.
Usually, the PPC is bowed outwards or concave. If the slope of points A, B and C, D are measured by tangents drawn to the PPC at those points, the tangents will be seen to get steeper and steeper. This happens because when the country moves from A to B from the maximum number of laptops and no cereals to fewer laptops, but some serials, at least some of the resources that were being used for making laptops are moved to the production of serials. This reduction does not make too much of a dent the slope of the PPC as measured by the tangent at B, which is relatively flat. When the country moves from B to C, let us say computer workers who are relatively more efficient than the first lot disposed of are now put to the production of cereals. Per additional unit of cereal production, the reduction in laptop production is more. The slope of the PPC at C is higher than at B. The slopes get higher as we move further down the PPC, which thus has a boat shape. If for some reason or the other, the economy becomes capable of producing more of X at every given Y or more of Y at every given X, there is a forward shift of the PPC reflecting the economic growth. If the reverse happens, there is a backward shift of the PPC.
Now let's go ahead and learn about market, buyer and seller, demand and supply. The word market comes from Latin word mercatus, which means trading, buying or selling at an appointed time or place. A market is not necessarily a marketplace. It is a context or background where buying and selling is taking place. The distinguishing feature of the market is that market transactions are exchanges usually performed through the medium of money. The seller, who is sometimes, though not always, the producer of certain commodities or services, brings them to the market and offers certain quantities of them at a certain price. He thus supplies them in the market. The prospective buyer comes to the market wanting to get certain commodities or services at a certain price. He thus demands them in the market. If the demand of the buyer and the supply of the seller match at a certain configuration of the price and quantity, the transaction takes place. The market is in equilibrium when the buyers and the sellers, that is, the demand side and the supply side, are in balance, or if it matches. We shall now talk about markets in micro and macro theory. In macroeconomics, the markets concerned are overall or aggregate in nature. Example, the goods market, the money market. But microeconomics is concerned with individual buyers, consumers or households, and individual sellers, producers or firms coming together to perform their respective roles in the market transactions, and the market takes different forms such as perfect competition, monopolistic competition, monopoly, and so on. Let us know about the working of the market price mechanism, demand and supply. The working of the market through the prices is known as the market mechanism or price mechanism. In any economy that has developed from feudalism to capitalism, producers do not collect information directly about the wants of consumers, and yet the consumers find all that they wish to buy in the market. Consumers, too, do not get too bothered about their wants being satisfied. They find that they have more or less been produced and brought to the market. There exists a certain degree of information and organization in the market without any planner, market researcher, or operator. We will now study about the market mechanism or price mechanism and the social welfare. The price mechanism is supposed to lead to the best outcome for the individual as well as the society. We will move ahead and talk about market failure or malfunctioning of the market mechanism or the price mechanism. The market mechanism can, however, fail and create chaos under the circumstances like the following. 1. If there are market imperfections, for example, under monopoly and monopolistic competition. Second, If there are governmental restrictions and prices are fixed or determined by the government through price floors and price ceiling and minimum wage laws. Third, if the commodity concerned is indivisible or very big, for example, public utilities like parks, highways, price may not allocate it efficiently. The price mechanism and the forces of demand and supply. The price mechanism balances the forces of demand and supply. It was Adam Smith in 1776 that first used the term demand and supply as corresponding concepts. Later, Alfred Marshall has compared them to the two blades of the pair of scissors. Indeed, demand and supply are two most crucial concepts of microeconomics. Demand. The word demand comes from the Latin word demandere, to claim or commission. Demand is the desire backed by purchasing power. A buyer or consumer does not merely desire a commodity or good or service, but has some power or wherewithal to purchase it at a price. Similarly, a seller or producer does not merely offer his commodity or good or service, but offers them at a price. One usual form that the demand curve can take is the downward sloping from left to right. That is, there is an inverse or indirect relationship between the quantity of a demanded of a commodity and its price, which is often called the law of demand. Consider the table for demand schedule representing prices and quantities demanded at the different prices. As is evident from the table, as price decreases, quantity demanded increases.
Even if the economy becomes capable of producing more of X at any given Y other than at the corner point of maximum Y, there occurs a forward shift of the PPC reflecting economic growth.
Supply. There exists at any one time a definite relationship between the market price of a good and the quantity the producers of that good are willing to offer or supply. This relationship between price and quantity supplied is called the supply schedule function and curve. Consider the table for supply schedule showing the different combinations of prices and quantities demanded at those prices. As it is evident, when price increases, the seller supplies more quantity.
If the economy produces more of Y at any X other than the corner point of maximum X, the PPC shifts forward. There is economic growth. If the reverse happens, there is a backward shift of the PPC.
The price mechanism in microeconomics leads to the outcome or solution of an equilibrium or disequilibrium. To find the equilibrium, the two schedules, supply and demand, must be matched or the two curves superimposed on each other. At the price where the quantity demanded is the same as the quantity offered, that is, at the point where the demand curve and the supply curve intersect, there is a perfect matching or balancing, that is, equilibrium. We shall now talk about the disequilibrium. When exogenous or endogenous variables or some structural imbalances prevent equilibrium being reached or maintained, the resulting disturbed situation is known as disequilibrium. In the diagram, any point other than the point of intersection is a point of disequilibrium. It is not necessary that there will always be an equilibrium situation. If the demand and the supply curves are such that they never intersect, equilibrium may not exist. If the demand and supply curves intersect more than once, equilibrium may exist, but this will be non-unique or multiple, that is, there may be more than one point of balance or equilibrium. Equilibrium situations, once disturbed, usually go through a process of adjustment and settle down eventually to the new equilibrium situations. Such an equilibrium is called a stable equilibrium. But sometimes a disturbed equilibrium may not ever settle down to another equilibrium position, but go on getting more and more aggravated. Such an equilibrium is called unstable. Let's talk about general equilibrium and partial equilibrium. In Latin, ceteris means other things or the rest, and paribus means at par or equal. The phrase ceteris paribus thus means other things being the same. It qualifies or conditions a causal relationship between an independent variable and the dependent variable that depends on it or functions according to it. This simple yet powerful technique, used extensively by Alfred Marshall, is known as partial equilibrium analysis, which lets only one market at a time be in equilibrium and may not capture the complexities of the real world. General equilibrium analysis is a contrasting technique first formalized by Leon Walras. This does not use the ceteris paribus assumption. It lets the interdependence of various variables play itself out. Prices of commodities are determined simultaneously and mutually, and all markets are simultaneously in equilibrium. Now, what is static and dynamic equilibrium? In a static equilibrium, all quantities have unchanging values, but in a dynamic equilibrium, various quantities may be growing, only their ratios being unchanged. We will now talk about the short run and the long run equilibrium. A run is a length of time not exactly specified. If all the factors of production can be varied during a length of time, it is called the long run. If some variables can be varied but others cannot, that is, are fixed, it is the short run. A short run equilibrium is one that holds in a short period of time where all the variables cannot change their values. A long run equilibrium is the one that holds in the long run when all the factors concerned are freely variable.
Let us now summarize what we have learnt. Economics is a social science that studies the human choice among alternative uses of scarce resources. Its methodology is deductive as well as inductive. Earlier economics was set to formulate laws of behavior such as the law of diminishing marginal utility and the law of demand. Nowadays, they are regarded as statements of general tendencies rather than the laws. Actual laws, too, are integrally connected with the economic life of nations. Although economics studies the real life problems or issues, it makes much use of model building using the abstract concepts and tools of advanced mathematics. Every society faces three central problems: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce, which are known as the problems of allocation, choice of techniques, and distribution. Economics studies these central problems of an economy through the production possibility curve or frontier. Economics makes a study of basic concepts like market, price and quantity, demand and supply, and equilibrium. The market mechanism or the price mechanism is the most important concept of microeconomics. Demand and supply of goods and services determine their equilibrium price and quantity in the market. Markets can be of various forms, ranging from perfect competition to monopoly. Equilibrium can be partial and general, long run and short run, dynamic and static.